Welcome to Holistic Strategies, where we discuss the interconnectedness of body, mind, and spirit, and how you can tap into your highest potential while living a natural life of balance and adventure.
In this episode, I do a cross interview with Maia from Soul Rebel Radio. If you want to check out her on Instagram and check out her podcast, that information is in the description below. On this episode, we dive deep into toxicity in our environment and in our food, how to break free from that chemically induced hypnotic state that a lot of us are in, from eating the wrong things, from getting too far out of touch with nature. We also go into subconscious reprogramming and how this can effectively enhance your life into living a lifestyle that you actually want to be living. If you're new to this channel, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're watching on Apple Podcasts, feel free to drop me a review. I'd really appreciate it. Now let's get on to the episode.
I would love to start this interview with you telling us a little bit of your life and what you do in your practice, and how do you start your day?
I come from a background where I grew up in California, and I moved to Idaho for my teenage years. And I came from a Christian household. So those are the values that myself and my family upheld as I was growing up. And then in my 20s, I began to study many other types of religion and philosophies and metaphysics as well, and spent many years educating myself, reading lots of different books, watching lots and lots of lectures, kind of became a hermit for a while. And I became really fascinated with this quest for self-knowledge. And then eventually that led me down the path of learning more about the mind, how the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious mind all work together, and how to access parts of the mind that maybe most people in the world have yet to uncover within themselves. So from that, I developed a technique to reprogram my own subconscious, and I used myself as kind of a lab rat for a while to see if it worked. And I created something called nocturnal reprogramming technique, which is a subconscious method of changing your habits, basically. And so in the morning, when I'm getting started, the first thing that I do is I shut off my audio tape. So all night long, I listen to an audio recording of myself speaking about a vision that I've put together. And this is what I also deliver to clients as well. We use their voice so they can listen to their own voice while they sleep at night. And so the first thing I do is I shut that off and just clear my mind.
And what are you saying in the story?
In this story, in this vision, it is my ideal lifestyle. It's all of the elements that I think my inner child would include in the perfect lifestyle. So all the people that I would like to have in my life, the types of people, the qualities, the health, the wealth, and all of those things that we have endeavors to achieve in life. I just put that in there into my programming. And then all night long, I'm hearing myself speak to myself as if it's already happening right now. And so I kind of prime my nervous system to feel as though the future is today. And doing this for long enough on myself, I've realized that it works. It doesn't happen instantaneously for everything, obviously, but you can start to see bits and pieces of the new reality coming in to your vision day by day. And then you trust your intuition to go down the right path to take you to all these new checkpoints in life. So there's a passive side to it, like at night when you're listening to yourself talk, and then there's an active side to it as well during the day when you're taking action.
It's almost like you're writing the story of your movie and you're telling the script to yourself.
Absolutely. That's totally what it is. And I got this idea from quite a few different people amalgamated together, but Bruce Lipton was one person who tipped me off, who said, this is possible. You can do this. You can listen to audio while you're in the theta state all night long and absorb it and start to really take on a new belief that you can feel in your nervous system as well. And that's the main point. If you can feel it, then it can be actualized much more easily.
Yeah, and I feel like it's also a way of like creating your own media. It's like not only we're creating our own videos and our podcasts and we're creating books, but also we were creating an audio for our lives. And this is exactly what the Illuminati or so-called powers that be have been doing to humanity for hundreds of years with cinema, with movies, with music. That is much more obvious now these days of how they utilize music, movies, and advertisement to program the subconscious mind of from kids, teenagers, adults. It's like, and everybody's getting into this program to believe certain systems, to believe certain like roles in society, things that they need to buy, things that they need to say, and it's a whole programming. So if they are doing it through social media and through Hollywood, we can also take the power upon our own hands of the media tools that we have to create our own story and reprogram our mind.
Absolutely. And it's funny you bring that up because that's where my passion for this line of work comes from. It was me in my 20s waking up to this, realizing that I had been programmed by society, by movies and by media and by people's opinions around me who might have been speaking from fear or lack. And I adopted a lot of beliefs and feelings and emotions that weren't necessarily mine or that I wanted to keep. So at some point I said, maybe I can switch this out for something that I prefer. And it started to work day by day on me. And I figured it would probably be smart to try it with other people and see if they would get similar results that I did. And so it's been a lot of different spin-off stories with everybody that I've worked with. Like people start at A, and by the time they get to B, their life is completely different, just like mine was. I went from something that looks completely different from what I live now. So you can change your life if you can change your programming. It just takes a bit of courage to do that.
Yeah, I remember myself like growing up reading books because since I was a teenager, I knew that I wanted to leave my town and that I wanted to like shift homes and shift to another continent and to another place. But because I was so young, I couldn't afford to start traveling. So what I did instead, I started reading books. I was reading books from like Nietzsche, Hermann Hesse, German philosophers, Latin American people like Pablo Neruda. These people were amazing travelers. They were having amazing lives and adventures. And I told myself, if these guys can't do that and put it into a book, that means that reality can be different and it's very malleable. So I can choose to live a life like Hermann Hesse and like find my way into my own Siddhartha, like my own hero's journey, or I can immerse into in another reality and construct another lifestyle way different than what I had growing up in Mexico. So it was through books and through music that I was allowed myself to reprogram the reality that I grew up in, which was a very depressive upbringing because I couldn't feel that anybody in my family was accepting me, or society was accepting me, or the school. I didn't felt like I was fitting in any circuit. And that's when I started searching for answers of like, okay, if society is a lie, is a total construct, if we're living in a prison city, it's like, what can I do to one, like get out of the matrix, to find the tools to deprogram myself from like PTSD and trauma of growing up. We all have massive levels of like stress and PTSD and trauma in our system. It's like not just from our family, for the people that grew up, is like a systematically ingrained and in every children in the world through schools. It's like school itself is like a little prison system. And I know this, like a lot of people that is watching this video, when you go back into your childhood memories, you felt like you were living in a prison in school because they are structured exactly like that to suppress the freedom of the individual and to take away the creativity and take away the rebel aspect and take away the community. It's almost like they're training you to become an individual. So when I realized that I could emancipate myself through literature, I just started like devouring books. It's like every week I would just read books and books and books. It's like I wouldn't even go hang out in nightclubs or events when I was a teenager, like my other friends would do, to just get smashed. Because I was not interested in like the club lifestyle. I was interested in emancipating myself and finding the tools to heal myself so that I can quit the system and also help other people do the same. And this was like the initial passion for me to learn information, was to be able to help myself and then help other people.
I think that's probably why we're talking today, is because we have a very similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
We come from a similar side of the world over there. And I think, from what I understand, the curriculum in Mexico in the 1980s and 90s was probably in some ways quite similar to what it was in the United States. And so the way in which we were taught to perceive our values is what's fascinating to me. Because you talk about emancipation, right? When you emancipate yourself, you get to completely reconstruct what your values are in life. And if your values change, fundamentally, your lifestyle will have to change, because you no longer give weight to certain things anymore. You don't allow certain things to hold you down anymore. You don't care about those things anymore. You don't value them anymore. So that's the point of accepting the possibility that we can reprogram ourselves, is because we can change our values, we can change our lifestyle, we can change out the people who are close to us and find people that are a better fit with how we truly want to experience life.
Yeah. Yeah, you change your lifestyle, you change your diet, you change the information of what you're reading, of what you're seeing, the kind of music, the kind of people that you're hanging out with, and then you start restructuring your cerebral cortex. It's like by small epigenetic shifts in choosing high quality food, choosing high quality relationships, high quality people in our lives. Because like there's these two sides. It's like we can either choose like the toxic side of the coin or the healthy side. And like toxic relationships and toxic food is so easy. It's just so easy to consume that kind of information because it's all over the place. And then it's harder to stop doing what everybody's doing and ask yourself, like, who is the boss? It's like, who is the boss of your body? Is media the boss? Is that restaurant your boss? Is that brand your boss? No, none of them are your boss. So like you need to reclaim your life by saying no to those things, no to those people that are just creating toxicity in your life. And tell to your own system, I am the boss, and I'm going to tell myself what I'm going to consume, where I'm going to do, and what I'm going to offer to others in life.
Yep, that's when the higher mind starts to kick in, and we see our center of attention kind of breaking through this barrier from fear into potential, like higher potential. And I've seen so many of my friends go through this process, as well as myself and as well as my clients. They break through that fear, and then they realize anything is possible, and they get this surge of energy. And I don't think life will ever be the same for somebody once they've gotten to that point. And they take their power back, they regain their sovereignty, and they can still exist within the world. But yeah, they just don't feel so tied down to these maybe judgments from their peers, things like that.
Yeah, I remember this like fresh feeling of like defying society and defying my family and the expectations of my family of finishing a career, because I knew, so even before, since I started like arts and sociology, I already knew that I didn't need a career actually, but my parents wanted for me to have a title, and I was like, okay, let's go for arts and sociology, and then by first year, I already knew that this was a construct, that they were trying to form me into a specific person. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be firm in like a cookie cutter system to become another grain of the factory. So what I did instead, I was like taking breaks between each year and then go travel Mexico. So like really discover myself, discover my own country, engage with indigenous cultures, which I'm super passionate about. I started working in activism since I was 18 years old. because that was the only true thing. In that time, that was the only true connection that I had, was with indigenous people who were totally inclusive of my presence in their ceremonies, in their protest against like minor companies, against oil companies. And that was my way of serving the world. It was like becoming part of an indigenous tribe and then helping them in their causes through my photography, through my writing skills, through media creation, through fundraising. And then eventually I started gravitating more with indigenous people and less into school, less in the art system, less in like this gallery fake reality system. And then at one point I was like, you know what? I just want to quit school. It's like, what am I going to graduate for? Like, what is this title for? So instead of going to the graduation day, it's like I took off. It's like I took a flight, went somewhere in southern Mexico to go to like an indigenous ceremony, and didn't even care to show up to the graduation day to get my title and my paper. And my mom was like, "You're not getting your paper?" And I was like, "No, because it's not important." It's like, that's what's not important in my life. It's like, I already have a life. I already have an activity going on. And that for me is more important.
So when you started to fork off to a different lane, like a different path, and you started hanging out with more indigenous people, what did you realize through spending time with people like this in terms of maybe living a more natural lifestyle versus living in the city and living in kind of this left brain rigid society?
The first thing that was like my biggest takeaway of spending time with indigenous people in Mexico, like Maias, Mexica, Huichol, Lacandon, and even Lakotas, because we also have Lakota nation in Mexico. It's like a mix of like Mexica traditions and Lakota. My biggest takeaway is the friendship aspect, the inclusivity. Is that you come to our circles, you're welcome. Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter if you're an addict. Doesn't matter if you're a Christian. Doesn't matter if you're a rocker or metalhead. You're super welcome to join us because we see you as a person. We see you as a human being. And that for me, to be included and given a position, given a role, be served an equal amount of food in the table, for so to say, it was everything. That was everything for me. So being accepted, the aspect of inclusion and working as a unit for like a common goal, for a common purpose. And of course, like they have very challenging lives. They come from poverty. They come from fragmented society. They come from a lot of like alcoholism, drug addiction in their families, coming from the colony. It was like what happened in Mexico with the colony is exactly what happened in Canada and the U.S. Colonizers came and they realized that they couldn't break people down. They realized indigenous people were like badass, super strong fighters, super strong in their mind and their spirit. They were even stronger than the colonizers. So they realized that in order to break down the spirit of an indigenous person, they needed to start giving them alcohol. They needed to start giving them like the tricks of like the white man starts with the alcohol. So they start putting alcohol inside water because they wouldn't take alcohol. They were like, no, what is this poison? They started putting small amounts of alcohol into the water they were selling them in the stores of the white men to indigenous people. And in this way, they started like getting them addicted. And then the other side was the religion. It's like they started to force them to go to the church in a way to force the Mexican indigenous population into the churches of Catholic and Christian religions was through storytelling. So there was like this massive storytelling that came with icons and like the construction of these cathedrals and like this imaginarium. And you can see this storytelling system also in Europe. You can see this in Europe. You can see this in Canada. But it took hundreds of years. And then you see now into the present moment and you see a society that is uprising against like Catholicism, against Christianity, against the government, against everything. Like Latin America is a nation that has been doing uprisings against the government for the last 100 years, 200 years, in uprising after uprisings. So it's a very rebellious, strong spirit. And that's also one of the things that I'm really proud about my nation and about my traditions and of Latin America, of indigenous people in the US, and indigenous people in Canada, and all over the world is like the spirit of indigenous is unbreakable. It's like there's this beautiful phrase that says, you can kill us, but you will never be able to cut our roots. Is that we will just grow up again and become seeds. And those seeds are going to become trees. So basically, there's no way that you can stop the spirit of indigenous people to rise up again and come even stronger. Because like right now, like the third generation of indigenous people is the ones that is becoming really strong. Because the last generation was like dropping out. They're like, no, I just want to be normal. I just want to go back to the system. And it was started to get integrated and lost. But then the grandsons, they look back into their grandfathers and grandmothers, and they start learning the traditions again. They start learning the sweat lodge and the pipe ceremony and the fire ceremony, and they become really powerful. This third generation of indigenous grandchildren.
The way that you describe it, it sounds like you're describing a force of nature. And I think about how long many of these indigenous groups had been in these areas, rooting down, setting a resonance in these locations, like setting a tone for a song to be played, and then all of the elements of the song play to that key, right? I see this all over the world. I see it in Australia. I see it when I go to India. I see it in South America as well. The amount of time somebody spends working with the land and working with the elements and the elementals in that area sets a tone, it sets a resonance, it sets a mood. So if somebody who is alien to that area comes in, it's like they're walking onto a stage and there's already a theatrical play going on.
Oh,
yeah. Like, who the hell are you guys?
They're watching you, yeah.
Yeah, so you might feel like, okay, maybe I don't belong here at first. But the history of Western Europe and how that's all come down is fascinating. It's something I'm still exploring and still learning about, everything that's gone on throughout that time. But yeah, we're at a time where we're seeing a lot of upheaval around the world, and it's interesting. It's fascinating to see people setting a boundary with the government for once. Maybe it took a while for that to build up. I'm sure the pressure was rising for a pretty long time in certain areas, Mexico and America and Canada a bit as well. So what we're seeing unfold now, I think it's reached a tipping point where a lot of people are like, what was I taught when I was growing up? And how much of that was false? How much of that was just a bunch of nonsense? And what's really going on here? Do I make my own reality? Am I one with nature? Can I feel at ease with nature instead of feeling like I'm up against nature and I have to fight it or like I have to control it? I think more people are starting to think like this. I think they're starting to ask these questions, and it makes me excited to see that. I'm seeing a new trend in a worldwide society. It's happening in Asia too. It's happening all over the place. And I don't know if it can be stopped at this point.
Yeah, the revolution is unstoppable. It just goes like wildfire, and it keeps spreading. Like Bob Marley said, you can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And right now, the majority of people that we connect with on a daily basis, they know. It's like they know the government is wrong. They know they're being lied to. They know society is wrong, and they know they need to change their lifestyle. They want to change their lifestyle. So we gone from like being teenagers and telling these things to our family, and our family telling us like, what are you talking about? Like what? The Matrix? What? And now everybody knows like this context. It's like not just because of the Hollywood movie, but because of the process of uprising that we as humanity have been formulating for the last couple hundred years, maybe last couple thousands of years, that we've been trying to uprise from the oppression of the ruling class, because this thing has been going on for a few thousand years. Couple thousand years.
Absolutely, at least. I look back into many different periods during antiquity, and I always see some kind of aristocratic type class that has knowledge that the masses have not been initiated into learning about quite yet. It's reserved for only a certain class. And what I see as a new trend now since the internet came out is more and more people are getting access to that knowledge now. And that's exciting. Now it could get a little chaotic because some people are going to abuse that. But I think a lot of people are coming into their own now. They are waking up and they are realizing that they can self-initiate as well. And so when they perceive the world at this point, and as we come into a sense of oneness as well, which is pretty heavy when you go through your shadows and you kind of run inventory on everything that's going on in your mind, you realize everybody else is doing this too. Everybody else is working with their shadow side at the same time, whether they realize it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not. And so then the ruling class from that position, they're exposed because you know their game, because you've been playing that same game on yourself. You've been punishing yourself in the way that they taught you to punish yourself. It's like a narcissistic, abusive relationship going on. But it's from people that you've probably never met before, right? So the way that I see it is, as within, so without. We have a mind, a singular mind that we all use, right? But then we also have a universal mind that we all share from mind to mind, and it's a big network. So I can see several little factions, minute factions within that universal God mind, if you will, trying to pull the puppet strings. And they're playing a very sophisticated, high-stakes game because they know how to play it. But every once in a while, some of us regular folks out here just pop our heads up out of the ground and go, hey, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, we see behind the curtain of Oz.
Yeah, exactly. It's total Wizard of Oz
like the
moment.
dog pulling down the curtains and discovering it's just a little midget behind the curtains with controllers.
Right. So what we have to be afraid of is more of our own power at the end of the day. I think that's what most people are truly afraid of. They think they're afraid of some elite ruling class or something. But once they uncover their real power on the inside, that ruling class doesn't seem so scary anymore.
Right. You become aware of your responsibility of not supporting the industries that are destroying the planet. And that's why people are afraid of acknowledging their power, because they don't want to have the responsibility of being that person that either supports nature or destroys nature. But we really need to become into the awareness that we are responsible for ecological disaster, and we're responsible to restoring a peace on earth. Like we each one have a responsibility of planting trees and cleaning the waters, cleaning the soil from heavy metals, cleaning our own bodies, our own vessels from heavy metals and glyphosate and BPAs and God knows what else is in our foods and water. So starting to take personal responsibility with your nutrition, taking personal responsibility of the quality of information that you're absorbing and reading and listening on a daily basis, and responsibility of the kind of connections and relationships that we have with people is what is going to start changing and tilting the planet into a more balanced and egalitarian and regenerative ecosystem lifestyle. I feel like we really need to integrate this regenerative ecosystem mindset into each one of our lives of like, okay, what can I do to restore the ecological balance in my town, and to observe what are the issues, what are the biggest issues in our community, and create a plan, create a strategy with a group of people. Like, okay, let's clean the beach, or let's clean the water. Let's find a way to bioremediate the land. How can we take away the heavy metals? And it's very easy. When you just Google it and find out which are the plants and the flowers that will take the heavy metals and the radiation out of the earth. And then we just create a plan, a strategy, and we do it.
Yep, this is how we apply our genius to solving issues. I always like to ask the question, if we were all God, what would God be up to in a world like this, in an ecosystem like this, during a time like this? Mm-hmm. Well, you're an alchemist. That's why you're here. If you want to solve the existential puzzle, what am I? Well, body, mind, spirit, holistically all together, there is an alchemical process that happens. Even in a world made of emptiness, there's still an appearing alchemical process going on. So you can place your body, mind, apparatus, avatar person in a crucial position to be of help. You could be like a component and an agent for help if you are available. And the healthier you are, the more available you're going to be to your community.
Right.
And you can actually curate a community at that point because you can show up for yourself first with a full cup, and it's much easier to lead projects and things like this.
Yeah, there's this phrase that says that health is wealth. And if we focus into creating health for ourselves and our families first, then we can support our communities by enabling healthy lifestyle, healthy foods like organic food system, food sovereignty, medical sovereignty, and creating our own clothes. Even like stop supporting like these big brands out there who are abusing human beings and who are abusing the environment. And I feel like it's so much more a sign of wealth to wear local clothes, support local farmers, eat locally rather than importing foods. Like support like the agriculture and the fruits and the farming systems that are in your location. And I feel like there's so much more wealth in showing up in the world as a self-sustainable organism of like, yeah, I walk through life, I make money, but I invest my money in my friends, in my organic farmers, I invest money in regenerating the environment. And by investing in the land and investing in my community, then everything else starts working in our favor. Is that because we're giving our energy to the ecosystem and we're giving our energy to our peers, then the ecosystem and the peer system is also going to like regenerate whatever we're doing. It's going to become this infinite loop of abundance.
I think the human body is our best clue when it comes to how a perfect ecosystem can work. So we have a circulatory system, right? And if it gets blocked, things go haywire in our body. We get sick. And as within, so without. Again, it's the same thing in our environment. So if we pay homage and recognize the circular nature of this world and apply that and feed the right areas and then take from the exhaust and put that where it goes, then you have a functioning society or community on your hands. These same principles that we find in natural behavior, in natural cycles, can be applied to culture. It all works the same way. It's just a little bit hard to see that sometimes.
Yeah, and also what you were explaining before of like this collective gut mind, that's exactly how the mycelia system works. It's like you see a mushroom, but truly there's thousands of mushrooms or millions of mushrooms connected through this like underground network that connects with the trees and connects with other organisms, and they become the brain of the land. So in the ideal world, each one of us grows our roots so much in our interconnection among each other that when we have an idea, then the other person can support that idea and that project because we're having the same vision, we're having the same goals. And the goal is like regenerate the earth, save the human soul, detoxify our own body, mind, and energy system, and protect our children. As like essentially like the pillars and main goals of being a human being, they're the same. In like the original blueprint of being a man or a woman in this life is protect life, restore order, plan food, create your own food, respect life, and clean the house.
Yeah, cleaning the house is overlooked a lot of the time, but now that you bring that up, it's funny. I redid my bedroom last night with intention, and I said, okay, I need to do this more regularly because the way you live your life in a small way is going to exude out from your core in a big way, right? So a lot of people say start at home. That can start in your bedroom. It can start in your office area. If you keep things organized and you know where everything is, if you feng shui your place. I think that's a really good policy, and it's something that I've adhered to for probably a good 15 years now. Is making sure smaller living areas where I spend most of my time are put together in a certain way, because I think it helps the mind adjust to how we present ourselves out there in the world and in our communities as well. So yeah, taking care of ourselves, health-wise, environment-wise, it's all connected, just like this mycelium network.
Yeah, it's so important to like keep our spaces clean and like this feng shui, zen, functional ecosystem, and then that applies to the body, because like we can have the most beautiful house and the most beautiful clothes and the most beautiful motorcycle, but if we don't have a clean environment within ourselves, that's going to create a stagnation, and that stagnation or inflammation is going to come into our brain, and we're not going to be able to function properly. And that's why I started like really focusing into how to create strategies to detoxify and bring nourishment to the human body and to the human mind. Because as a society, we have been denying our body, we have been denying our energy, denying our heart even, or mostly denial of our own self-love and stability, because this is how we were trained. We were trained to just become like little soilers, class A students, the best worker, the best this, da. But like nobody gave us like self-care class. It was like nobody gave us like a Chinese medicine class or a traditional botany and how to create your own medicines or how to heal yourself without having to go knock on the door of the doctor. And for me, that's really important. If we truly want to call ourselves sovereign beings, I think we need to start learning how to heal ourselves and how to heal our family members. Because in case of any potential disaster scenarios, it's like the hospitals are not going to work. It's like there's no system that you're going to be able to knock, and like phones are not going to work. So we really need to start learning how to heal our own selves and our own families with the medicinal herbs of our environment, with the superfoods that we can find in our location, and with techniques that are available in books and in online that have been used for thousands of years. Is like human beings have been able to heal themselves for thousands of years until very recently, a few hundred years ago, that the pharmaceutical industry became an industry, became like this whole institution that now is structuring society around this biotechnocracy. And they're like forcing people to buy pharmas to be functional in life when that's not necessary. It's just creating more illness, it's creating more inflammation, it's creating problems in the gut microbiome, is bringing the immune system down, and it's not helping the health of the person. So that is something that I saw in my own person, and I saw how pharmaceuticals 6 years ago destroyed my gut microbiome. And it was devastating, because if you're not able to absorb nutrients, you're not able to boost your immune system, you're totally fragile. You're a total fragile human being. And this is exactly what's happening right now with the common man and the common woman, is they're becoming very fragile because of all the pharmaceuticals that are in non-organic foods, that are in prescription medicines, and that are even in like a soda, in a can of soda full of BPAs.
It all adds up. All of the things that you just mentioned, this list of things and more, it all adds up to a strange cocktail that each of us are ingesting. Even the most pure people in the world are still going to ingest fumes from a car or a machine every once in a while. There's no way to be completely pure in this world. But I think we are living at a time of unprecedented levels of toxicity coming at us from every direction. And the funny thing is, a lot of people are unaware of most of those things that they are exposed to and how it's affecting their state of consciousness, how it's affecting their their thought patterns, how it's affecting their hormones, which is going to be affecting your thought patterns. A lot of people overlook this. And it's scary. That's probably why a lot of people overlook it. It's a really scary thing to have to consider. But if you do it, you're going to be operating at a level of courage that you probably never have before. And it's worth it. But you got to jump to the other side and say, okay, what products in my house could be fucking up my endocrine system right now? What foods in my cabinet could be messing with my hormones? After a while of cleaning up house, even deeper this time, you might recognize that you feel a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
I went through this. I had to do this. And it sucked. But I was like, fuck, man, it's like the red pill, the next red pill. Every day I'm learning something new. Like, okay, I got to get rid of that. Like, how much of this stuff is toxic? Is it all toxic? And it turns out most of it was. But we're just living at a time, we're living during a climate in history where toxic products are the norm. This is what we're sold. This is what they market to us. We don't really know any better than this. So I think we all need to become alchemists and work with our bodies and become very specific about what we do want to absorb into the body, what is natural, and understand what could be harming my body as well, what could be harming my emotions. If you could operate at a higher emotional state, if you could operate in a state where your thoughts are more clear and not so jarring and negative all the time, how much better would you raise your children if you're that much more available to them? How much better would you perform in your vocation? I think your performance would hit all-time highs. And I'm just speaking from experience. I got rid of the junk. I figured out what the junk was, and then I got rid of it. And then I took some time to readjust, do some yoga, do some meditation, get in touch with nature, live out in the jungle for a good amount of time, connecting with the elements and connecting with my core on the inside. And then eventually I looked around. I said, this is a lot more of a peaceful world than I used to perceive it to be. And I still look in the eyes of a lot of people that I meet today, and they still got that haze going on, right? That haze that I used to have in my eyes, like that glossed over kind of look. And I listen to their fears. I listen to their sadness. I listen to their anger, and I listen to their guilt and their repression. And it doesn't affect me like it used to. I can listen, I can be present with them, but I just feel much more calm and secure within the core of my being at this point.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You can definitely see what's going on, the reality of another person, just by looking at their eyes. You can just get an impression. It's like their eyes, the tone of their voice, their frequency, the way they hold your hand, or the way they give you a hug. Everything is in the body language of a person. And yes, I completely agree. I also went through that process of shifting from processed foods, non-organic foods, into organic, wild-crafted, natural, grass-fed, collected, locally organic products. And it's massive. Even when you're eating it, you feel lighter. You feel like you're putting like something light into your system, and you're literally putting light. It's like, because most processed foods, of all processed foods, there's no information in them. It's like the information of life has been canceled, and these foods have been programmed with anti-life sequences, which are contributing to toxicity in the body, depression, gut issues, which prevent enough serotonin and dopamine to go into your brain. So your thought forms and your lucidity and your cognition goes down dramatically. Goes down when you consume like processed foods on a regular basis.
And when you're in that state, here's the most important part, because why are we here? We're here to empower people. I mean, that's what you do. That's what I do. We give people knowledge to empower them so they can feel their best, so they can live their best life, so they can help us live out a beautiful world experience for this life, you know? that's what we're offering here. And when you're in a state of deep toxicity, as we could call it, maybe there's probably levels of toxicity, but some people are really, really messed up inside. Like they've been on the Oreo cookie diet for a long time or something. Yeah. And they're eating non-food products, stuff that's marketed to them as food, but it's more like an excuse for food. People like that are much more easily controlled by a narrative. And if somebody is toxified enough, basically on drugs, and a lot of them are on white-collar drugs. And, no offense if you take white-collar drugs. It's fine. I'm just saying, consider maybe the amount that you're taking, or maybe reconsider if you need it or not. But if you allow all of that stuff to come together, that creates a very interesting scene that we're looking at in today's world. And yeah, you can be easily controlled and manipulated at that point because you're operating at a lower level of cognition. So if you do a strong detox, a lot of people report this. They do a really strong detox. They listen to whoever subscribed the detox to them and said, okay, I feel like I need to do this. I can't live this life like this anymore. I can't keep eating this crap or smoking this thing or drinking this thing anymore. I got to stop. They see the light of day eventually. And then they realize, holy shit, I'm creating this. I'm creating this life that I'm living. What have I been doing for the last few years? And then eventually they realize they've been dealing with emotions. They've been dealing with emotions, and they've been using these foods and these drugs and these beverages that government and marketers and industries are throwing at them because it's cheap and it's easy to get them addicted to it. They've been throwing this, and it's just a Band-Aid to put over your emotions. So a lot of people, when they detox, they uncover an emotional world within them that they were never familiar with. They had been repressing it all this time. And it's really, really scary to have to consider that for the first time especially. But day by day, if you pivot yourself a little bit, if you start to do a bit more of a detox, you're going to feel more emotions as time goes on. And when you feel more emotions, that's your power to create the life you want to live.
Your passion's coming back as your testosterone levels come back and your hormones come back alive from being stagnant or in a state of confusion because the endocrine disruptors out there in your soap, in the clothes detergent, and in your car spray were messing you up. From a molecular level, you were being messed up the moment that you start spraying that thing in your car or in your body. And like all these disruptors, it's like nobody sees them. It's like nobody see how like the molecules in the endocrine system and the hormones and the pheromones. Nobody sees them, so it's not existent for a lot of people. But they're the most important thing for health. They're like one of the most important things to have good in your life so that your passion, your energy, your vitality, even your sleep patterns come back into shape, into right function. And when we realize that the power that comes with that detoxing and with those protocols and with adding medicinal herbs into our lives and adding up real food into our life, and realizing that these are superfoods. These are like the vitamins that we need. These are like the nutrients, the nutrients that we need. These are like the minerals and the power that we need in life. And then we start coming back with more power into our relationships, into our job, into our projects, into our mission. And that's when we become more awake.
Yes.
Like, literally, like detoxifying our body and our mind makes us so much more awake and so much more human.
Yep. We evolved through this experience on Earth here by some means. But one thing we can detect is that the stuff that we've been eating and consuming and buying and spraying and washing our houses with and all of this over the last 75 years or so was never like that before. Before it was much more simple. So what I suspect is that if us right now, and all of you listening out there, if you take on a bit more of an old world mentality, and I'm talking going back like maybe 200 years ago, and you adopt some of those daily activities into your life. If you do things the ways that they worked back then that didn't harm your body, didn't harm your system on the inside, it might be worth it. It might take a little more time to do things this way sometimes instead of using certain machines and certain chemicals. But is it going to give you a longer life? It likely is from what we're seeing in the data that's coming through and the ongoing list of detrimental effects that that these types of things are having on people, all the new diseases popping up and everything, and like autoimmune, especially. I have people in my family who dealt with autoimmune for many years, and it took them a long time to figure out what it was in their diet that their body was rejecting. And I think a lot of people out there are dealing with this right now. It's unprecedented. It's never been like this ever before. And if we want it to change, and if we want it to go back to where it was before, where we lived closer to the earth and we respected the boundaries that the natural law provides to us, I think the smart people out there will adopt some of these behaviors once again. I think we're going to see kind of a renaissance coming forward that we haven't seen for a very long time in terms of the ways that we live and the ways we conduct our lives within our households and our properties as well.
You're right. We are that generation that realized how fucked up the last generation was. And then we see the lives of our grandparents and we see pictures back of the 60s and the 50s, and everybody was fit. Like, you see a picture of the beach in the 50s, everybody's looking like a supermodel. They look so good and healthy and like flourishing. And then we go back into like forward into the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and people started getting like bulking up into becoming obese. Because I remember like going to Walmart, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago. And then you see these huge products, like a huge butter about this size and a milk bottle this size and a cereal box, like no kidding, like this size cereal box. And we see the contrast of like last generation, present generation, and then we see the coming generations, the kids, and the statistics of what Dr. Zach Bush outlines as a 40% of chronic illnesses in American babies, rising up to like 35-40% of the babies in America being born with a chronic illness. And that's incredible.
What is that showing you?
That's showing you that the parents had a lifestyle that was suppressing the immune system, pushing the inflammation levels constantly through their lives. So epigenetics comes in a way that every single choice that we make is not only affecting us, but it's going to affect the future generations. So when we choose to eat something very toxic, we're putting that information in our genetic code, and that information is going to go to the next generations of having an infliction of being very resistant to certain product, or being sensitive to certain kinds of foods or certain kinds of environments, to having more sensitivities and allergies, and potentially even autism. It's like there's also a statistic coming from Dr. Zach Bush, is like the levels of autism in the general population are going up, and then in men, sperm count is going down, testosterone count is going down. And this is very dramatic. Like, to see that in the last 40, 50 years, the sperm count in males have gone down 50%, that's alarming. It's like, that's alarming for me as a naturopath, for me as a woman, for me as like a future family mother. Is like, I want my kids to be able to have children. It's like, I want my friends and community to be able to have children. And how are we going to be able to protect our hormones and our reproductive systems is starting to transition from artificial diet to a natural diet, and starting to consume more medicinal herbs and supplements that support our hormones and our digestive system.
Yeah, we need whole foods. to be honest. And we need to recognize the quality of the whole foods that we're getting as well, because there's a whole conundrum that a lot of these foods will go through before they land in the store that you buy them from. They could be sprayed with shit. They could be, they could have other things added to them that you don't read on the label if you're not paying attention. And so we have to be pretty vigilant to understand what is natural and what has been tweaked by human consciousness in order to maybe up a profit, which is often the case. And there's nothing wrong with profit. However, a lot of the time, people will cut corners in order to maximize their profits. It's
Yeah,
just
like
part
seed
of human-
oils.
Seed oils is a great example. I mean, the birth of seed oils came from engine lubricant. And now someone came along and said, oh, we got excess engine lubricant. What can we do with this? Well, someone resourceful came along and said, well, maybe somebody will eat it. And they said, well, how do you know that? Well, I fried some potatoes in it. It tasted fucking delicious. So I think we can market this. Just needs a little salt on top. And it worked. So we got to be aware of what's natural and what's not natural, because nature is always going to do this. It just does what it does. Nature is going to nate. And if you veer off the path of nature too far, it's going to slap you. So you have to observe nature. You can't overcome nature. Human consciousness cannot and will never overcome nature. And that's not the point of our existence, to overcome nature either. The point of our existence is to ride the wave of nature, is to be one with it. It's to honor it and to admire it and to listen to it. And when we do that, life's good. But when we don't, we suffer.
I think it's important to talk about seed oils and how toxic and carcinogenic are for the human body. Because like there's very few people in the health coaching industry that are talking about it, but there's more and more people talking about it. And I want to make it clear that if you're still consuming seed oils, call it canola, sunflower, safflower, rapeseed oil, whatever you think it's organic and natural, it's not. It's not, and what it's doing is creating a stagnation and chronic inflammation in your brain, in your arteries, in your blood, in your heart, reproductive system. It's like disrupting the function of your cells, covering them with oil, and then asphyxiating your cells, depriving them from oxygen, causes death of the cells. And what happens when the cells in a cluster die all of a sudden? It becomes a tumor.
Yep.
So first thing first, if you want to start improving your health, get rid of your seed oils and stop consuming products created with seed oils, and stop going to restaurants that fry their foods with seed oils. As easy as that.
And the thing is, we know how delicious foods cooked with these products are. Trust me. I'm sure you know. You've been traveling a long time. I've been traveling a long time. We have tried seed oils from every continent except for Antarctica. But you got to realize there's other ways to get that flavor from whole foods. For instance, it might be a little more expensive to use ghee to fry things in.
I use ghee all the time.
Ghee is legit.
That's the only thing that I use for cooking.
This is a whole food, and this is a very ancient food as well. In Ayurveda, they've been using ghee for thousands of years. It's a safe thing to use, and the type of saturated fat that you get from ghee is going to help your brain. It's going to help heal your brain and heal your nervous system. It's going to lube you up. So you don't have to sacrifice flavor, is what we're saying. But you do need to know what some of these foods that have been marketed to you are actually doing to your body, and look around at your neighbors, look around at your friends, people that you've known for 10, 15, 20 years. Are they getting fat? Are they getting significantly fat? Are they unable to walk as far as they used to walk? What are they eating? What are they drinking?
They just got a heart attack again?
A lot of the time they have, yes. So the last thing we want to do is fess up and be honest with ourselves and say, okay, I've been eating a shit diet for like 20 years. That's the last thing a lot of us want to do. But what are your values? Is one of your values to live a long life? If it is, then that's going to have to stop because it's hurting you. It's not helping you at all. And again, you don't have to sacrifice the flavor. There's other ways to get that flavor from whole foods. You just got to get creative.
Yeah, you just get the combination of using coconut oil and ghee butter for frying your potatoes or your onions or the garlic of your dish. Tastes amazing. You're only going to spend $10 more in buying that coconut oil or that ghee butter, but it's going to save you thousands of dollars that you would spend in the hospital or you would spend in a doctor trying to fix the mess that the seed oils are creating in your body. You're going to save thousands of dollars. You just need to spend $10 more per month. That's it.
Yep, it's a smart investment to buy the right foods that are in alignment with the natural way. But the hardest part is recognizing what the natural way is. You might have to do a little research. You might have to do a little bit of reading. You might have to really think back pre-industry. What were people eating? What were my ancestors eating? Your ancestors are coming from Mexico. Mine are coming from Western Europe, like UK and Italy. And so I looked into those areas of the world to figure out what were they eating 200 or 300 years ago. It's not going to be anything even close to fast food whatsoever in the way that it's built and the integrity that holds it together. It's completely different. So how can I revert back to that? And can I enjoy the food? Does it taste good? Is it a culinary experience? Hell yeah, it is. You got to make it a culinary experience for yourself. You just use your wisdom, use your genius in the kitchen, because we all have to eat. This is something that we all do most of the time, every day, right? If you change your eating lifestyle, you're going to change every other aspect of your lifestyle. Your relationship to the people in your life is going to change if your eating lifestyle becomes more natural.
Yeah, you just have to be more creative. Like, you can have the same meal cook in 10 or 20 different forms. If you get creative in the kitchen, you start experimenting with flavors and what happens if I grill this, what happens if I eat it raw, what happens if I make this kind of dressing. It's just creativity. It's just like getting yourself into the kitchen, spending time making your meals, or paying somebody to cook for you if you have the means to do so. And if you don't, start cooking some meals instead of like going out every day, every week. Start cooking in, experimenting, learning how to cook, learning what gives you pleasure, learning to work. Because like, this is exactly what Olympic medalists do. It's like they cook their own meals, or they hire somebody to cook for them. Same thing with like people who are professional sportsmen or sportswomen. It's like they don't go to restaurants. They don't, because they know that the restaurant is going to cook with seed oils and this is just going to like damage their performance. So all of these like top athletes, they cook their own foods.
Athletes know. It's in their business to know what's going into their body, because they all have trainers that are knowledgeable, that they get paid very well to educate them and to keep them in line so they perform the best, right? This is just like if you have a racehorse, you're going to feed that racehorse pedigree food because you want it to outperform everybody else, right? So it's the same with athletes. They know, and their trainers know. They know what not to put in the body and what to put in the body. But we have an opportunity now. I mean, some people might perceive it as a challenge. I like to see it as an opportunity to become the alchemist in the kitchen with what you feed yourself. And if you learn to make food for yourself, if you don't already cook and you're still learning how, if you get better and better at it, you realize this is an alchemical work of self-love. I'm taking care of myself and I'm allowing myself to have something that appeases my taste buds at the same time. So yeah, you can have both, but you just need to know where the boundaries are, the natural boundaries. Nature or your body, aka your body, will tell you if you've overstepped your boundaries. And that will look like ailments. It'll look like diarrhea or something like this. Like your body will be speaking to you saying, hey, whatever you just did last night, you can't do that to me because I'm not going to perform very well. So we need to listen to our bodies and we need to be honest with our bodies as well. Our bodies are trying to deliver a very valuable message to us every single day, whether it's through the nervous system, whether it's through the way the lungs feel, whether it's through the body temperature, our core temperature that we have. It's trying to speak to us and tell us. If it's showing us that we have pain in certain places, we need to listen to that. But most of this is going to be solved with the diet, I believe.
Yeah, 100%. And like the reason that I'm so obsessed about performance and biohacking and detoxifying and nutrition and all these like important fields It's because I had to learn them in order to save my life 6 years ago when I became super sick of Lyme disease in Mexico. The medical industry had no clue on how to solve my case. They didn't even know how to start treating me. And so I noticed that right away. I noticed the ignorance of the doctor that I was appointed to. And I told my father, who was also a doctor, I told him, I never want to see this person ever again in my life. It's just a waste of my time. He doesn't have a clue how to treat Lyme disease. I'm going to take the case upon my own hands, and this is the way I'm going to save my life. And my family, who's mostly composed of medical doctors, they're like, what are you talking about? You have to follow the rules. You're just going to become more sick. And I'm like, no. I'm going to take the case upon my own hands, and I'm going to find the way to heal myself, because I know nobody else in the world knows my body better than I know myself. So start experimenting with diets, shifting this, shifting that, adding superfoods, finding the alternatives to pharmaceuticals. What are the natural bactericides, the most powerful? Because I needed the most powerful to stop these bacteria from multiplying. And I could see my levels of cognition going down. It was like pretty scary to see glitches in your eyesight and glitches in your articulations. And I'm like, whoa, no. I need to stop this. So I had to become really smart very quickly and very well informed about immune conditions and how to stop bacteria with natural bactericides. So I started getting all these powerful herbs, powerful supplements, and powerful foods in order to support my system, support the immune system, support the gut microbiome, which was damaged by the pharmaceuticals that I was taking for a month. While I was learning how to treat my case, I was like, okay, let's put a pause to the multiplication of the bacteria with doxycycline. And then the doxycycline, by 4 weeks of taking it, it was just completely destroying my gut. And I was like, okay, we need to rebuild the gut microbiome, rebuild the immune system, rebuild the balance of the hormones and the endocrine system. And nutrition, 100% just nutrition, high density nutrient foods, ghee butter, fish, chicken, green vegetables, superfoods. And like the most important part was the mindset. It's like waking up with the conviction that I was going to win, that I was going to be able to overcome the statistics and not fall into the statistics of the medical books or the online searches that were pretty alarming. And I didn't want to become that. I was like, I don't want to die. I don't want to live the rest of my life on a bed or taking pharmaceuticals with a very low quality of life. I'm gonna fulfill the mission that I came here into the world to live, and I'm going to heal myself. So every single day for around a year, it was like a constant battle of like just focusing and taking the right supplements, the right foods, the right bactericides, the right nutrients, and the right mindsets to win the fight. It was almost like this Olympic competition of like waking up and like train and envision yourself winning. It's like envision yourself healing, envision yourself regenerating your organs. Because like, is anybody like watching or listening, is like whenever you have a very intense illness such as cancer, autoimmune condition, chronic illnesses, it takes a very intense toll into your adrenals. It takes a toll into your brain, it takes a toll into your heart, and it takes a toll into your mitochondria. So you have to go into your cells, and from the engine of inside the cell that is called the mitochondria, you need to start like powering your cells, like really just power, so that the cells can start rebuilding your body, wiping out the pathogens, and like supporting your system to replenish and rebuild itself. Because like the human DNA is a super powerful nature's God machine that has the power to heal itself. You just have to take away the poisons and take away whatever is creating a stagnation in your system, and your body will start healing and regenerating itself.
The type of mindset that you're describing just now, that's the real human spirit of the higher mind kicking in. That is the human will that says, I'm going to do this. This is going to happen. I'm not going to stop. Like a higher power comes into your life and moves the body to do certain things. And we all have that. That's what's special about your story, is that everybody has that within themselves. They can also tap into that. They can be inspired by you and your story to realize, I got that. Why don't I use that? That's my ultimate resource right there. The body is subject to change sometimes. It's okay for the body to change. It's okay for the body to heal. It's okay to let go of any sense of guilt or shame that we have about our bodies, because a lot of us do have that. And I've dealt with that before myself, feelings of guilt and shame about the body, like, oh, I haven't treated my body very well, and this doesn't feel very good. But at some point you just have to be like, okay, well, that's over now. Things are changing. And let that higher power come into your life and allow that transformation process to occur. And when it does, your emotions are going to follow as well. You're going to feel revitalized, not only in your body and in your mind, but on an emotional level too. And that is holistic living in a nutshell right there. The power of transformation to the point of where you recognize all of you, and all of you can lead the way to an absolutely better life, a life that many of us talk about all the time, but we feel like we still haven't tasted it yet. We're all on the path to get there. So that's what I welcome everybody to consider today as we close things up on this podcast, is to listen to Maia's story. Listen to this innate power that we have within ourselves that we can tap into at any moment. We don't have to give into fear. We don't have to give into stories from the past. We don't have to give into perceptions that our peers or our elders have told us that might not be true, that might be rooted in fear. We can go beyond that. We can face our fear dead on, tap into our power, recognize that we are strong, that we are capable, we are able to rise above any perceived limitations that we think could be holding us back. That's where we're going. That's where you're going. That's where I'm going. We're doing it right now. And I could never picture life being anything else but accepting the inner power and letting it lead the way, being the guiding light.
Reclaiming our internal God power of this invincible conviction that we're making it. We're going to be able to make it to the other side. We're going to be able to attain a perfect health, perfect balance, flow state, success, wealth, abundance, health. But we just have to start doing it and do the right steps to claiming that. Because if we allow these distractors and toxins and negative thought forms into our life, we're never going to get there. We're never going to be able to become that which is our intrinsic self, which is our original blueprint of health. It was like God made us to come into this planet and to reclaim our health so that we can help other people do the same thing. So we can help restore the balance on Earth. It's like evolution wants progress. Evolution wants health. It's like it's an upward spiral that is motivating us to even become stronger than 10 years, 20 years ago, than the last generation. This is a evolutionary jump. And of course, it seems that we're going to like this cliff of declining health and declining ecological balance. Of course, there's a lot of red flags that we have to evaluate and take control and remediate. But by the words of Zach Bush, is that we're not dying, we're evolving. Like this is a process of like genomic adaptation to our environment. And while we're adapting to our environment, we're starting to make the right shifts in our body, into our environment, so that we can start regenerating our lifestyle and our mindset and our ecology as we walk through life, reclaiming a more holistic life in which we are healthy and thriving.
Absolutely. When we live in harmony with nature, when we live the natural way for humans to live, you just can't help but be happy, because I believe that happiness is our true inner state. And that whatever is getting in the way of that, you probably don't need it anymore. You could probably let go of it, whatever it is. Whatever it's, if it's something you're addicted to, or something that you just can't stop thinking about, or the way that you perceive yourself, you can let it go. And whatever we let go of, we become all the much lighter, and life becomes that much more easy to live. And I think we all agree that a life of ease sounds very pleasant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's our original blueprint is to be at ease with our environment, eat local foods, do not stress to get these or take that or accomplish this. It's like start living a more accepting and connective and enjoyable lifestyle, and to be able to enter that flow state that everybody talks about. And it's so easy. We just need to stop forcing ourselves and allowing more for the beauty to happen.
Yep. The unfolding of the beauty. That's what I'm here for. Maia, thanks for being here with me today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah,
And
likewise.
If people want to find you, where do they find you?
Instagram, Maia with an I, Inti Amaru. And how about you?
I'm Holistic Strategies on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me into this amazing podcast. And I hope you guys listening, having many takeaways, take notes, and then go take action, because you have the power to change your life.